welcome to another No Print Management podcast. I'm delighted to have with me today Florine Darmon from Konica Minolta, France. Florine, I wonder if you might start with an introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to have this chat with you. I'm Florine Darmon. I'm the head of the marketing at Konica Minolta, France. And your pronunciation of my name is perfect.
I'm working on my French very slowly. So.
And so in advance for my English, the reputation of the French people is the English is not very, good. So, well, I'm sorry in advance.
I think we're going to be fine here. So let's start. I often start here, but let's start with customers. Tell me what's happening in France. What are customers doing in regard to print, the way that they're buying print, what they're expecting from vendors?
In fact, there's a huge migration of our customers from the on-premise to the cloud printing. There is a huge trend. Not only printing, in fact, the cloud environment is very often pushed by customers right now for a lot of reasons that I will tell you just after. The role of the CIO is changing a lot because before it was only dedicated, to infrastructures, to servers, etc. Mm-hmm. And now he's very focused on pushing the digital transformation in the company. Mm-hmm. So this is a new role, and it's quite difficult right now after the COVID because of the lack of people to hire. So he faced a lot of new challenges, and he really wants to get rid of the burden of the print management or about the management of server, etc., etc.
So your customers are coming to Konica Minolta quite directly and saying, "Hey, we've got these problems. We want to get rid of this stuff." And they want Konica to take over, or they want just not to do it anymore. How does it turn into requirements for your sales team?
In fact, it's quite difficult because some of customers don't know how to get rid of this burden, actually. So this is the role of Konica Minolta to say, okay, now we could have the solution to avoid that and to let you focus on a higher value task. And that's why we are pushing a lot cloud printing right now because it's easier for them to focus on the digital transformation right now. But they don't know yet that cloud printing is existing. So that's why it's a real education of the market we need to do right now. We started to do that since I think 6 months right now. To say, okay, guys, we are starting to implement some managed services around print. We will be able, to take care for you all the management of printing in your company, and it's especially very important for SMBs because SMBs also have a lot of challenge around cybersecurity, etc., and they are now asking us to manage our printing challenges.
And so do you see this in the very biggest customers and the very smallest customers, like every customer looking for a path where ultimately you guys can play a higher value role, but they're looking to offload the responsibilities for printing?
Yeah, that's quite surprising because the management of print and the services we can offer to customers on an on-premise application were dedicated before to larger companies because it was quite costly. It was a little bit complicated internally. You know, they often need people in the company to manage the infrastructure, etc. And now we thanks to cloud, we moved this problem. We avoid it, and in fact, we can reach now and target SMBs market because thanks to the cloud, because it's really less costly than before for SMBs. The infrastructure is they do not need to manage the servers and the users, etc. And in fact, they spend a lot of time to do that before.
So it changes potentially the speed at which Konica Minolta can bring on new customers as well. Like you guys can roll out projects faster because of the cloud.
Yeah, it's. What do you mean about project into the customer, or?
Yeah, so the speed at which a customer can say, "Hey, Konica, I want a new service," and if it's a cloud service, they can just press a button and it's on, or there's still some kind of professional services attached, or how would that side of things work?
No, the idea and what we are planning to do, because it's not already set up right now, but it's on construction. We will work on a huge package of managed services in order to make the promise to the customer to say, okay, we'll do everything for you. So you don't you won't you do not need to do anything about prints. We will take care for you.
It's quite a nice way for a customer just almost to wash their hands and say, I don't need to touch this stuff.
Yeah.
Will there be some challenges, some limitations to that in terms of, I don't know, is it security or data sovereignty and compliance and things, or how do you see that stuff playing out?
That's the main challenge, especially with all the constraints we have with around security, the GDPR in Europe. We need to be compliant. That's why it's very important that all the data are stored in Europe and not US, for example. It's very and especially in France, because in France the government put a lot the local compliance. They really want the data to be stored on in France and in Europe. If it don't, it's not possible to store it in France. So yeah, there's a huge. It's very important that to be compliant to GDPR right now because of that.
Your approach then is to bring customers these package services and really to respond to this requirement where they don't want to touch anything. And so you say, hey, we're going to take everything on. And then you start to describe some of the security challenges that customers will present you. And you start to describe the sort of data sovereignty, location in France, or at least Europe for GDPR.
Yeah.
How do you start to educate your sales teams? Because presumably for your sales teams, these challenges are kind of new, and there's an awful lot of, I guess, new things to learn in the cloud, right? It's a different set of problems. It seems like it solves a lot of customer problems, but it introduces new challenges, new things to learn, new problems for sales teams to tackle. How are you approaching that sort of sales enablement piece?
We in Konica Minolta France, we are lucky because we have a team that is already very familiar with cloud, because they are sending a lot of IT application around cloud, SaaS application. So I'm sorry, I don't know why it's still ringing. I just Okay. Let me see if it will be okay. Everything is,
You're having an IT meltdown there.
yeah. Let me see. Just, I have a bug with the Outlook and Teams. Great. Okay. So what I said is, so we have pre-sales also, that.
So maybe I'm going to try to edit that bit and we start from the top. So I was asking around the challenge for educating your sales teams, and you were starting to talk about some of the strengths that you guys have in IT services. So
exactly, we have an IT team that are selling a lot of SaaS application in France. So they will help us to train the other sales team. And we also have pre-sales that are very involved on training, and that will help us marketing to develop the cloud language. And that's how we're gonna help the sales to answer to all the questions that
you kind of have two challenges, right? There's one about educating the sales, but a second about educating the customer and helping the customer to really understand what they want from a requirements point of view. Exactly.
And we also have a challenge internally in order to be able to set up correctly, in fact, the cloud print application, because it's typically a new way to set up. For example, we need to have a dedicated service team in BF that will be able to make the onboarding of the customer. The role of the technician will evolve. The field technician. We will set up a remote support team that will, in fact, make the service directly on remote for the end customer. And in fact, this team will send a technician to the customer when they will have a real issue, but only concerning hardware, not software. So it's very new into Konica Minolta, and we need to also have build a CSM, customer success manager team, in order to develop our scope or managed services. So a lot of challenge.
I feel like having two marketing leads on the call, it's a unique time for us to just get a bit excited about the way the role of marketing will change. Because I think 10 years ago, it was like, oh, we need a Windows 2008 server with this specification, and we're going to bring our screwdrivers and do loads of techie stuff. And customer onboarding used to be like horribly technical. And now actually, I think customer onboarding, just like you say, it moves to this customer success conversation. Actually, there's a lot more touch points. And as a marketeer, it's a lot more like, okay, how do we do the welcome for the customer? How do we make sure they're using the product correctly? How do we understand? So it feels like a really exciting time for the industry from kind of a customer care point of view.
Exactly. Exciting, but also difficult, because it's a real transformation of the model we used to have. So we need to convince externally, but also internally, that the development of service and the marketing of services is really key for the future. And sometimes it's difficult. But we succeed with some customers. So
I wonder if we might we might dive into a couple of customer examples. You were talking about some customers that you were kind of thinking before this of describing some of these customers, specifically asking you guys. Can you give us an example maybe of a customer requirement and how that shapes out?
Yeah, for example, we talk about SMB customers. So in fact, let me take an example. We had in Rennes. Rennes is on the west side of the France in Britain. We have a customer that have about 15 MFPs with an old on-premise solution for print management. And there were 5 different sites with 5 servers. So it was a typical kind of SMB's customer that Cloud Print could be interesting. So the SMB company really wants to avoid, in fact, the server management. And it was very costly for the IT to and they spend a lot of time, to manage these 5 different servers. The IT director really wants to focus on new challenge and especially on the evolution of their ERP. So lots of challenge. That's why when we arrive and we talk about Cloud Print, it was very, very interesting about the cloud solution to avoid the burden of the print management on a multi-site with multiple print server. So it's really typical of what we can provide in terms of services to SMBs right now.
It's just kind of, maybe it's a typical case, but in the same way, 5 years ago, it would be amazing that rolling out an ERP system would be a buying signal for printing. It's like, hey, we've got these other huge priorities, but actually, because of that, we're going to drive our print projects faster. We want you guys to take over and do more. It's a really nice example.
We have also another example, quite similar actually. It was a construction company based on the southwest, so a lot of in the west part of France, and they have a huge policy of business acquisition. So each acquisition they made their own and separate infrastructure and network. So quite
okay. So they're acquiring other construction companies and growing. Okay.
Yeah. And the IT department of the headquarters wants to offer the same level of services, and that is not network depending. So that means Cloud Print, it was perfect, to answer to this kind of issue raised by the IT department. Because
so meaning that because they're a construction company, they don't necessarily even have networks in some of the sites. Like it's literally a construction site.
No, in fact, it's not exactly that. In fact, they made a lot of business acquisition, and all these companies have their own network, own infrastructure, own servers, etc. And in fact, the head of the company say, okay, we need to set up a solution, a printing solution that where the service is the same in every company we acquired. And that is not depending on that can be set up, on different infrastructure with different network, etc.
Okay. So they use the internet across the board, and everyone has an internet connection.
Yeah.
If they're not on the same network. Okay, that's really nice.
Yeah. Same thing with public organization, for example. I don't know if the same in Canada, but in France, it's quite a mess, actually. The IT on public organization is very complicated.
I think the whole world has that challenge, right? The public organizations have huge policies, and then in practice, it's a nightmare underneath.
Yeah. And in France, there is a kind of politics in some small towns. They join forces to create communities of municipalities. And that means they could have separate infrastructure. So the IT departments wanted to at least to propose to merge the print management, but avoiding the management of it. So this is the same same example that the private company just before. There is different infrastructure, and to avoid some costs, they want to propose a cloud print organization that is not dependent of the infrastructure.
So really, I think there's some kind of common themes in these customers where if the sites are distributed, so they're in multiple locations, or maybe if the IT team doesn't have control of every part of the organization, actually cloud print's a really good fit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So,
and do you see the data localization challenge with the government customers? Are they saying, "Oh, we need this in France," or they're located in Europe, or how does that work from a service delivery? Presumably, the US is not acceptable.
No, unfortunately, no, it's not acceptable. And it must be in Europe at least. And the government is pushing a lot local services, and especially in France. I don't know if in all the Europe is the same thing, but in France there is a huge push on that. So that's why we are working to set up this kind of services locally in France, even if the storage of the data is in Europe, but the services must come from France.
Okay.
Better, it's better and it's easiest to sell, especially with public organization.
So you can simplify the offering for your sales teams by ticking some of these boxes around service delivered in France.
Exactly. And also for major accounts, it's very important. We talk about the security topics, but we answered on a big tender with Cloudprint, with the biggest transport company in France. So you can imagine the level of security we need to provide. And in fact, we are facing the same challenges as SMB, so it's quite surprising. There were also multiple sites everywhere in France. So there is a need of very secured environment that was very difficult to reach with on-premise infrastructure.
Okay.
So, and it was also a hell to manage it, because imagine there will have a kind of office in every little city in France. So for management, it's for the IT department, it's very, very difficult to manage.
So in the old one, that might have meant a print server in every city in France, and the IT team has to log into the print server to manage things.
Exactly. And there were only 3 people in the IT department dedicated to print.
And how many, give me an idea of the scale of devices. How many devices are we talking, like?
I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. I think it's maybe 6,000 devices. Something like that.
3 people managing it. Wow.
Yeah. So you can imagine,
Yeah, that's a stressful thing.
So they were very, of course, very interesting about our cloud print answer. For 2 things, of course, to manage print infrastructure by Konica Minolta, and also to lower the budget allocated to print, because this is also a very important topic. There's a lot of companies that wants to decrease their budgets allocated to print in general.
It's interesting. I was going to say, so are you seeing customers with cloud printing say the overall cost needs to come down, but the delivery needs to stay the same? Or how does that, and are they thinking about total cost of ownership? So they include the cost of the servers, or are they just putting pressure on your services for the prices to come down? It
depends on the customer. That's why we need to educate them. Of course, what is important is to make a TCO of the solution, the cloud solution, because there's a lot of costs that are high, and that will in fact decrease their cost of management, cost of people, etc. And to maybe and to delegate the service to Konica Minolta it's a way for them to decrease their cost.
Yeah. So both physical costs for infrastructure, but also the human costs of interacting.
And it's a key thing because in France, it's very, very difficult right now to hire IT people. And everybody is facing the same challenge. And these key people are very costly because, it's a low of
the salaries are going up. For sure.
Salaries are very, very high. So that's why they were a little bit blocked before because of the trust, the confidence, etc. And now they are agree, to delegate some services to their provider. So that's why it's very interesting that now we have the solutions to do that.
I was going to say, I think it's the right time for the industry where people maybe 5 years ago were looking at this and the technology wasn't quite right. The number of features weren't quite there. But now it seems customers are kind of in, I think that the product portfolios that we and others offer are kind of reaching the right level of maturity for a lot of customers now to start to think through cloud and start to realize what it can and can't do for them.
And they were afraid also. They were afraid that, in France, the SaaS solution, everything around cloud, people were, very afraid about that, and they preferred not to control their data, not sending data in the cloud, etc., etc. But since COVID, everybody changed their mind, and now they're pushing a lot of all the SaaS applications because they understood the power of the cloud.
And so is there a role for you to do in the marketing team to kind of help customers conquer those fears? Or you think that's a trend happening in wider IT in France that's going to happen naturally?
No, there is still education to have, especially on SMBs. Large companies already understood the power of the cloud. So it's not we just need to reassure on security topic. And that's it. But for SMB market, we still need to convince. We still need to help them to understand what are the benefits of the cloud, and we are still in a phase of education. It's very new for them, actually, especially on print.
The barriers will be lower in SMB though, where there'll be more, like if you reach certain security standards and you can prove certain things, they're just going to go, okay, I guess that's enough. Whereas I guess in enterprise, there's going to be more of a sort of proof of concept and they're going to test you on certain things. Exactly.
So that's what we are doing actually. And we also need to make our sales team understand that they need to focus on the cost, the easiest way to manage, the managed services we can offer, etc., not stay focused on print characteristic or just control the number of the volume of black and white. You can do things to the solution, etc. So we need to move a little completely, not a little bit, the way to introduce a managed print services solution. So yeah,
I think there's a challenge to the sales teams to modernize sales approach, get away from speeds and feeds and into this slightly more challenging, but I think slightly more interesting from the customer perspective, way of delivering services.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of them, print was in French we say the parent pauvre, the poor parents. I don't know if there's a right prediction in English. for IT department. In fact, they it's not an essential element, for IT. They really want to get rid of that. So in fact, they are very happy if we say, okay, we will do that for you with security and reassure about that. I'm very confident that we can sell a lot of print services to this customer.
It feels like the right transition then for me to ask you about our marketing slogan, no print management. What does no print management mean to you, mean to your customers?
In fact, the print management, quite complicated to explain it in French because English is more direct. So we haven't found the right translation right now for in French. So we are working on it. So I will ask Delphine to help. But the reaction is a surprise. Because they say, okay, for many times, you sell to us print management and now you say, okay, no print management. So explain to us what does it mean? But, it's also a great opportunity, to explain, cloud print and why now they won't, deal with management of all the printers and all the users, etc., etc. But no print management could happen only if you set up all the managed services around that. So, in fact, Cloud Print is the tool, and managed services are what you are selling. We are selling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, in a way, from a marketing perspective, it's perfect. You said it's a surprise, but it creates an opportunity to explain, and I think that's exactly what we wanted. I think with no print management, the opportunity to start to guide our customers and our partners in a different way, and to have partners like Konica Minolta to do that with us as a kind of joined up value proposition, I think is great.
Yeah, and we need to create surprise to our customer because it's important to find the great differentiator, to create the discussion, and to help them to understand that we know their challenge, we know how to answer to them, and not to answer only with the solutions, but with a real service, a package of services. It's important.
I think that's a great conclusion. Florine, thanks very much for joining me. I'm excited that I think you're going to be the first guest where we're going to record a second podcast in French language as well. So I'm going to have to test my French and try and listen to the recording. Hopefully you'll speak slowly in that one so I can try and follow.
Yeah, thank you very much, and sorry again for my English. I hope it will be okay for everybody and understandable.
No, the English is great. No problem at all, I'm sure. Excellent. Okay.
Thank you very much.